We're here. We did it.
We did it 1 year.
1 year. It is the Real Talk with Jesse and Sherrod 1 year anniversary slash birthday party episode.
Yeah.
Yay! And I have completely lost count of the episodes. I think we're on episode 27.
You are right. We are on
Okay.
episode 27.
So thank y'all all for tuning in, and thank you for everybody who has grown with us throughout this year. Jesse texted me last week that, or the week before, even what is time anymore? We don't know.
Yeah, we
That
don't. I think it was last week, but who
last week
knows?
that it was our 1 year anniversary coming up. So we are just so excited. So we just wanted to do a short little episode birthday party to commemorate our 1 year.
Yeah. We're excited. It's been 1 year. It's been a great experience to talk to a lot of special guests and talk about, real mental health issues that, kind of taboo to talk about. So that's been nice to be able to do freely and non-judgmental conversations.
And the real and real talk.
Yeah.
So Jesse and I are going to play Rose and Thorn. I try and pronounce the "th" because I used to play this game with my teenage years support group, and I thought I was saying Rose and Porn, and that made them laugh a lot. I was like, no, what is Rose and probably a thing. I'm not going to Google it, but to like, no, Rose and Thorn. So we'll each review kind of like our favorite thing that we've done, and then because we know we don't really have a least favorite thing, that we'll say like something unexpected or that was just like tougher to deal with than we maybe had anticipated going into the podcast. All right,
That
Jesse,
sounds good.
do you want to go first?
You can go first.
Okay. My rose would be, I just think like that we've done so many cool episodes that even with our podcast being in its first year and it being our baby and it being smaller, that like thinking that we've had like authors and like council people on and rappers and subject matter experts and lived experience and even tough subjects like mass violence. Like it's just to me, that's been so amazing to be able to pull in these people who really like our experts are nationally known or throw their passion into whatever angle it is they're coming at wellness and behavioral health, and like that they would spend their time to talk to us and that they seem to enjoy being on the show because we have to keep it so real. That to
Yeah.
me has been one of the coolest things. And I think what is unexpected or what is tougher is the patience it takes to grow your audience, because I think
Yeah.
that we have so many cool episodes, even including ones where it's just you and I chatting. I actually love those episodes and think they're really
Yeah.
great. But like then I'm like, oh my gosh, y'all should listen to this. People I don't know out in the ether, you'll like it. So but then especially when we know we've hit one where like I think in particular about like some of the tougher subjects we have tackled, thinking about like the mass violence episode, thinking about when we had the Bryce River Foundation on and talking about suicide loss, when we talked about grief with our colleague George Murray. I think we have a lot of episodes that can really help people. So it's like I keep wanting to be able to be like, why aren't we like a, celebrity? Just
Yeah.
come follow
Yeah.
us. Because I really do think we have great episodes, and I don't know, it's tough to have the patience as you try and grow your audience.
Yeah, I think that I would agree with you with that with my thorn because I'll be looking at the views and stuff and I'm like, oh well, people are they're actually watching this and I'm like, yeah, but part of me is like, oh, I just want to reach more people, I just want us to have more followers. But I think, as we continue, we could always try to, like I try to tell people about it. I know a lot of people, use TikTok and stuff, and I know we're kind of new with that one, and so. I will agree with you. I think that would be my thorn too. And then like sometimes like when you're like even though you know what kind of guests you're gonna have and you think you're ready, like you're like, okay, I can deal with like what they're about to talk about or like that sometimes gets tough. Like, like with the Bryce River Foundation, like when he was talking about his son and stuff, we talk about suicide and we know, we deal with it on a daily basis, so but when you're hearing someone tell their story, you're just like, it kind of hits you, like, because you see the hurt and pain from it that they experience and they're still going through it. So I think sometimes, like, even though like we do this for a living, like I really don't think you can ever be prepared with certain things like that are talked about. Like it still affects you, like you still think about it. So I think that's been kind of like not tough to deal with, but it's been like surprising, for me at least. Cause like when they'll go into like, start like with George Marie when she was going talking about, her family loss and things like that, you know, um, that's somebody I highly respect. I really like her and she's just great. But when you hear it and I mean, it's different from knowing about it versus them actually coming on the podcast and really just being real with us. And talking about real feelings, you're just like, you just feel so like touched, but then you're like your heart breaks at the same time. But like when like we're doing like when you're sending the interview questions or you send me the thing, I'm like, oh, that's great. So you kind of think you know what to expect. But then when you're interviewing like each guest that we've interviewed, like with Miss Louisiana, like how down and chill she was, but then she talked about things that she's been through. So it's just like you're almost like, oh wow, like, I read the questions and I understood what we were gonna ask, but then sometimes the answers are not like prepared for. You're like, oh wow, like that really affected them. Like, but look how strong they are. And that's would be my rose, would be listen to the stories, but how powerful they are at the end of the day. Like, even with our conversations, like us talking about things we've been through, but how stronger it made us and how we dealt with it. And, like how it's like everybody, like from authors to rappers to people that are in the council to everybody that we've had, which we are grateful for every guest that's came on our show, but like we're all in different types of fields, but then we all connect, through something, and I think that's the bigger picture, like that, for this podcast, when I had the idea, that's what I wanted to create to show you, like, even authors and famous rappers and, people in the council and just regular people, we all go through these things and handle them, but we're all going through it the same, we're all together on that versus, like, oh, well, they probably don't go through that because they're an author, or they're a rapper, or they're this. Like sometimes we forget that those types of people that are in those industries are people too. And I think that's been cool to show, like, and then like the clinical side of it is really important. I think has been really helpful in our interviews. So I mean, it's just been a great year. We've had a lot of great guests on both, from me and you finding people, and even just me and you talking back and forth. Like we've had a really great topics. Um, but I do agree with you. I don't understand why we're not like number one on Apple yet, but we'll get there.
Clearly.
It will get there. Like we'll get there. I just think it's all about like keeping like spreading the word. Like I feel like that's my goal is to try to like for the next year for the podcast at least to try to like make it more known or talked about somehow. Like I got to figure that part out, like how I can get us out there more. But I mean, we should be proud of ourselves. We're on Spotify, we're on YouTube, what I mean, and we've only been doing this for a year, and it's not like nobody's watching us. It's not like we're sitting on there with zero views, but I get it because I'll look at it, I'm like, that's a really great episode. Like the mass shooting one, I think was really touching for me because that's like you hear about shootings a lot lately, and I'm like, they need to watch this. People need to see like this episode, or like sometimes you'll be watching something, you're like, oh, we just talked about this on the on the podcast. It needs to be talked about. Like people need to watch the episode, but I think we'll grow. I think it just like you said, it takes patience. You can't come famous overnight, even though we should be, because we do a great job. But I do think that's my goal for the next year, for our podcast is just trying to make it more, known or available somehow, or, just maybe look into like Googling my own stuff, like how I can, get it out there more, just because even if they, even if of course we have new episodes, new subjects, and might retouch on other things, other subjects we talked about, but um, it's just it would be nice to just have, those episodes that we've done put out there. So, a little bit more. So I think that's my goal is to work on that, to figure out how I can get it across more places or at least get more views.
And I think we did accomplish our first goal, which was like we didn't want to miss any of our postings in the first year. Like we wanted
Yeah.
to hit that every other Tuesday, and we did do that. So yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we've done good, and like you've been great. Like you've really worked hard with me with this podcast. And like I said, it's been a great year. I feel like we've had some really great episodes that have even like I still think about them, and I mean some of them have changed my life just knowing certain things, or like being more sensitive, or and I've learned a lot. I think that's one of the biggest things, like talking to different people. You learn a lot from doing these episodes, like, because everybody has their own type of, thinking. Like when we did Alfred Banks, he's a rapper and he's well known and he's got, hits out there and he's on tour right now. And, like you would have never thought, some people would be like, oh, well, he's banking, he's not going through anything, but he is. And the whole reason why he's rapping is because of his brother's lost, and his brother encouraged him, and he lives for that. And I thought that was a powerful message.
Mhm.
So I think things like that is what makes our podcast really unique, because it's not like, it's like everybody that we interview or every conversation me and you have, we show some type of connection to mental health and how it affects people and how it's either made them grown, or and definitely it's made them, some things they've had to deal with depressed, but then they learned how to turn it into a negative situation into a positive. And so we've seen a lot of people's strength on our shows. So I think that's all positive.
Yeah, I do think that like that allowance we have because we are so unscripted and unfiltered that
Mhm.
we come in of being like we're just gonna talk too, and
Yeah.
so like whatever happens, and I think that ends up allowing people a space of like we get into these areas that maybe are not like the technical reason they were first coming on the show, but it's part of their story, and we were able to create space to allow that as well, and I really like that. So that is also why my goal is a non-goal for next year, that we are not going to learn how to edit because we're just
Yeah.
going to keep this real and
Yeah.
it's going to be what we record goes on there. I also
Yeah.
would like to shout out to my own home listening devices and algorithms because now they will put our episodes on YouTube on my like next to watch on YouTube list, and I'm like, oh my gosh, YouTube is blessing me. They've done it for my mom now. My mom told me that she was able to watch us on YouTube while she was crocheting the other day, so I was like,
Yeah, and you know what's
yay.
funny is so I like, like watching like mental health like episodes, like just anything. Sometimes I like to see what other people are talking about, or like other subjects, just to see what people are talking about around the world. And it was really cool. So the other day, well, it was a while back, but it was probably about 2 weeks ago. I was at my mom's house and I couldn't sleep that night, and I was laying on the couch and I was on YouTube. And I know we're on YouTube, but I've never like gotten on my personal YouTube and like
Mhm,
watched us, because my wife is signed in. So
mhm.
like I'll look it up on hers. But like I typed in like mental health podcast, and then on the For You page, ours was like number 4. Like it was like,
Yay.
and I thought that was the coolest thing. Like I remember I screenshotted it and I think I sent it to my wife. It was like at 3 a.m. She was probably like, "What are you doing up?" But it was like at 3 a.m. And I was like, "How cool is that?" And she was like, "That's really cool." Like she responded at like 8. But she was like, "That is really cool." And I was like, "I know." I was like, "I've never even searched us on my YouTube, like just because you're signed in on everywhere." So I think, that was really cool. That was, I felt, famous then. I was like, look at my podcast, me and Sherrod's
Look at
podcast
me.
up there,
Yeah.
But I do agree with you. I like that we don't know how to edit. Like I know my wife was like, I know y'all talk about y'all don't know how, do you want to learn? I'm like, no, I really don't. I said I like that if, some a mistake happens, it's just there. Like when Connor was like,
Can we
he
pause?
when he forgot what he was talking about for a minute, and then he was like, can we just pause? And we paused it, and like we were like, look, like we could pause it, but it's gonna be on there on your episode. And he didn't care. He was cool. I love Connor. But I like that. I think that's real. I think I like that. I think that's, people, I mean, we make mistakes. You're not perfect. Like we're not a perfect podcast. We've said that from, the get-go. So I like that we can't edit, because I don't to me, you're taking out the good parts. Like you're taking out the parts that maybe wasn't supposed to be there. Oh well, like things happen, and that's just real life.
You never know what part of someone's babble is actually gonna be impactful to somebody else, so
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's exactly true. Like, and I think it's funny, but we honestly like we've done pretty well. Like a lot of our guests, they haven't gotten like stumbled up. Like they're just like like
okay.
or we'll forget what we're talking about for a minute, or like our mind goes blank and we're like, give me a second. But like, but that's just real. That's how life is. So I think, us being called Real Talk, that just makes it more authentic and just shows that we really are just a podcast that we're really just here to talk and like, try to make a difference, try to save lives if we can or make people more comfortable with talking about mental health. And I think that's helped a lot with us having different varieties of guests. I think it's helped with me and your conversations, like just talking about things or even our vent dumping episode. Like that's completely to me, that was one of my favorite episodes because I feel like everybody needs that. So to like be able to do it with you and then be able to put that episode out there, it almost normalizes like because it should be normalized that's okay to do. So I think a lot of the subjects we've talked about or a lot of the episodes we've done, we've really tried to normalize like it's okay not to be okay, and everybody goes through things differently, and that's okay too. And then self-care is so important. That's why we talk about it so much because I feel like that's the number one thing that a lot of people don't do enough for themselves. I feel like I talked to when I was on the call center, I talked to a lot of people. They had no self care routine. They didn't even enjoy 5 minutes of their day because they didn't take the time for themselves. So, we talk a lot about self care. So I think that's beneficial. So I'm really looking forward to the next year. And, I know, we're going to come up with a lot of great conversations to have, and that's going to be fun. But I do think I will look at how to, try to make us a little bit more, out there for people because it's important. I think mental health is important, and some of the podcasts you listen to, they're good, but it's almost like textbook, and we're not textbook. And I think that's what makes us unique. Like we do like, you're clinical, so you come off like really, you're very smart. So but you're able to do that, but in a goofy way. You're like fun about it. Like, like how you talk about things, you make it fun. So it's just like I think that would would be helpful for people. Like I think a lot of and I'm not just saying it because it's our podcast, but like if I was to stumble upon us, like I would watch us. I think we're both funny, and I think like we both are really intelligent, and I think we both come from different areas. So our two perspectives are really great with each other. And then not only that, like we've had some amazing guests tell their stories, and it's all
Yes.
real. It's not scripted, like you said. So I like things like that. I prefer things like that. So I think that's what makes it special at the end of the day.
And that's my dog wants to be on camera. Look, Mikey. You're
Look, he said he plans on being on the
He
next year.
did. He's been on. That's the real goal.
Yeah,
This will become Mikey and Ruffles show.
I know. We'll just have them sitting up here. They got conversations I'm sure they want to talk about.
But I do think, I mean, one of my favorite things really has been, and I know we talked about it a little bit in our last episode with our couples therapy session, but I have loved getting to know you, and then even because we didn't know each other at all, we like
At
never talked
all.
before we started doing this. And then to know that we've been able to like trust each other, not only with this project, but then have these episodes where we're so vulnerable with each other. I mean, that's real. That's real stuff we're deciding to share with each other. And um, I have just really loved that. And I really thank you.
Yeah.
You've been like such an amazing support for me outside of this podcast. And like, yeah, I'm so glad that with anything, we got to know each other and really go on this incredible experience together.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Because I think it is funny that like we literally have never talked before, and then like I literally sent a thing about a podcast. Like I remember I sent it to OCS, and then Victoria, and they were like, "Well, that sounds really great, but reach out to blah 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 and go from there." And then like, I mean, I've heard of you, like I've heard
Yeah.
about you, and then of course I follow our Facebook page, so I've seen like your post or like things about you doing, different things 'cause you do so much. I mean, the fact that you even made time for the podcast means so much to me because I know like your schedule is I'll get on there and you've been at one event and then like 3 days later you're at another event. I'm like, when does she rest? Like she's just always going. So like, it was really cool. Like, because I mean, I've known of you, so, but I've never talked to you. So, like, it was really cool, like, when you reached out and we talked for the first time. And you never know how because everybody's different. So, you never know, like, if that chemistry is going to be there for,
Right.
you to do something like this. But, like, your energy from the get go was so, like, I think you were more excited than I was at first. Like, you were like, this is really cool. Like, yeah, we're going to do this. Like, and the fact that you've made time, and I know like there's been times where we've literally gotten on and we're like, okay, we only got 30 minutes, we got to do this. And, I know we've had personal things happen in our lives. And, just the fact that you make time really means a lot to me because I know like your schedule is usually pretty packed out. Like you're always doing something. You always, I'm sure your email stays full. And so, like, you just really being able to sit down with me and want to do this and take the time really means a lot because, you could have been like, nah, I don't, let's look at this at a later date. And you wasn't like, you were very supportive and like getting to know you and, that I mean you've had some personal things go on and we've talked about it, we've talked about my personal things and just it's just being able to like you said get to know you and you've been there for me and that's been really nice to have because like I said we barely knew each other so it's you gain so much more than just a podcast partner at the end of the day and that's what's been really cool and then being able to share things like when I told you to read that one book, or like, hey, check
Yes.
out this author, like, and then like just like finding out like we like some of the same stuff and how we're both kind of really obsessed with animals, and that's okay. But just things like that. It's been fun, and like I think the energy between the both of us is really great, and I couldn't think of a more perfect partner in my podcast. Like at first, I thought I was gonna be by myself because that's I was like well I don't that's gonna be weird but like I didn't know how to be like well maybe I should have a partner maybe I didn't know I just wanted to do a podcast that's all I knew I thought
Yes.
that was important so when we linked up I thought that was really cool like I think we really you know bonded and I think you were the perfect fit perfect person for our podcast and you bring so much to the podcast and beside your busy schedule, you've really done a lot for the podcast, like with the people you brought on and the effort. You mostly do all the interview questions. I'm like, I'm glad she does it because if I do it, it's gonna be one question asking about this, and then it's gonna be a whole nother subject, and it's gonna go right back. I can't. I said, so I'm grateful she does that because my interview questions they would be all over the place. But, like, I really think that's awesome, like, how you just make the time and effort, like, you didn't have to, and, you did, so that it just means the world to me.
Well, I love doing this with you, and I loved your idea from the get-go, and I had a really good feeling about us from the beginning because you were like when I was like, "Okay, we don't know what we're doing, but can we just start doing it?" And you're like, "Okay." And,
Yeah, I'm down.
so I really liked that because we didn't, and I agreed with you where it was like, "I wanna just do this. I don't wanna, like,
Yeah,
spend, like, 6 months figuring it out. Like, let's just
yeah.
start recording stuff." And, so I really love that, and now here we are at a year.
I know, and it's so crazy that's been a year. It doesn't feel like it, but I think, and then like I was like, when I realized it's been a year, I remember I was just thinking about like all of our episodes. I'm like, man, we've really covered like a lot of things in a year because we do two podcasts a month. And, I mean, but like I've thought about like every episode, and I'm like, even from our first episode to now, like they've all been great. There's not one episode that I'm like, that was kind of, you know, that was all right. No, I'm like, I mean, I watched them and I'm like, that was like, I'm not trying to brag on it, but all of our episodes are really good. Like, even if you just watch from the beginning to now, we've had a lot of really serious issues and we've talked about them and we've like helped, I'm sure somebody's watched us and been like, I connect with that so it's been really nice and like I feel like the subjects that we cover like I wish like when I was younger there was a podcast like this just because you almost sometimes don't know how to talk about certain things and I think us showing how down to earth people that are in different industries and different things like that how they go through things and I think that's really important too that we've done. And then having clinical, professional people on here talking about, like the mass violence shooting when we had the victim and the the lady who specialized in it. That was cool to hear from two different perspectives. Like she was like, "Yeah, you feel like this, but also this." So it was almost really cool to see. You almost see like the whole view versus like one side. And I think that's really cool. And I think that's what I like about us the most because I feel like you have a lot more like experience on the clinical side. But thank you, Ruffles, for trying to knock it. I'm telling you, my cats are wild. Like you have a lot of that, but you also have that empathy value to it. And with me, like I don't have as much clinical experience as you, but I have like the empathy. I've worked with, in foster homes and stuff. So I feel like we really are both of us have that combination to where we can touch on so much stuff even more because we have those different perspectives and different views or different ways and different like education backgrounds and stuff. So I really like that about the podcast.
So that's a shameless plug for anybody listening. If you have not listened to our back catalog from the past year, go back and explore because we have a lot of really cool episodes. And we really can't wait to keep making more with y'all as we go into our next year.
Yeah, how exciting.
So, Jesse, let's hit him off, close out our year with our sign off. I feel
All
like
right.
we can do it. Maybe this should actually be our goal for improvement that one day we'll
Maybe
like actually get
so.
this better. But for now, this has been Real Talk with Jesse and Sherrod.
No
No
filter,
filters,
no
no
fluff,
fluff,
just real
just
talk.
real talk. Happy birthday to us. Happy
Happy birthday,
anniversary.
1 year, 1 year.
Yay.